Hey guys, Darren Collier, Coach of Wise Pods, and welcome back to another episode of Trade Mode heading into round 9. It is going to be a bit of a tricky week of trades heading into this round with not a very clear option of what you should be doing. So, this video is going to show you, or give you some advice of what I think are some pretty good options, and it can depend on where your team structure is at. So that's where I really wanted to start this video a little bit at the moment, is just that the buys are approaching. I think we all are aware of that. So I wanted to start with a bit of buy structure planning. We've got 11 trades remaining until we play in round 12, which is the start of the buys. So I wanted to knock off a few things that I think are important to really look at this time of the year, with a couple weeks still leading into the buys. So number one, I think it's important to really start looking at how your team is structured up, and that essentially means count the players that you have on each buy at the moment. So essentially what that means, and I do highly recommend, if you pay up for the AFL Fantasy Buy Detector, as I'm showing you here, it makes it super simple to be able to see who you've got on each line and how many players you have on each buy. So you can turn off exactly who is on a particular round, and you can count pretty simply from there. So I think this is very important because it can show you if you are heavy in one particular line or not, or who you probably need to target in a certain round. For example, if say for example, if I had 10 or 20, or sorry, 10 or 12 sort of round 12 sort of players in my team, then I would classify that as way too heavy, and you really need to start avoiding those sort of players. So that can help you with your trade-ins this week. Particularly, I know a lot of people are looking at, for example, a Xerri Sheasel, a Xerri, maybe looking at a Butters or a Bontempelli. All those guys have a round 12 buy at the moment. So, they will have the round 12 buy. So they are not. I would not recommend trading them in. So it really depends on how your team is structured up at this point in the year. The other thing, I think, if you want to dive a little bit deeper, it can take a bit more of brain capacity, but you can also look at line by line. Do you have a buy player in each of the rounds? So, for example, I've got Harry Sheasel in the round 12, but then I've also got Nsai Manganimulira in my defensive structure, but then I've got a lot of round 14 buy players in my defensive line at the moment. So I'm very heavy in the back line for round 14, so I'll look to rectify that over the coming weeks, if not leading into the buys, to really, so I have coverage through those weeks, because ultimately you still want to be fielding 6 players, a full team of 22 every single week. That's the ideal structure. Sometimes you're gonna have 21, just with and what we're going to experience is that we can't field both Ruckman because we don't have our R3 at the moment, so we're going to be down to 21 players. But for the defensive half, the midfield, and the forward line, you should have no excuse but to be fielding the max amount of players every single week. That's the ideal structure. So that's just an example of why I think it's important. And like I said, it really helps improve what you're looking at in the next couple weeks, whether you're trading in a certain player or it helps you determine who you're trading out. And that sort of leads me into, most commonly across the fantasy community currently, round 12 is probably the heaviest buy, where a lot of people with the likes of North Melbourne, who have the likes of Sheasel, Xerri, Daniel. That's already 3 players, very highly owned, all probably 50% owned, if not more, at the stage 65, 53, and then Sheasel's obviously very high as well. So majority of players already have 3 ticked off just one team. Then you've got the likes of Port Adelaide. You probably got a Rosie and a Horn Francis. Horn Francis, very highly owned, 50%. Rosie, a little bit less, but 37. So that's probably 5 already ticked off in your team. Then you've got the likes of Carlton. So you maybe have a Chera. You maybe have a TDK. That's 7. So that's when you're starting to really push the boundaries of, you're probably getting a little bit too heavy in that round, because you're really going to struggle to get 22 on field. But then you've also got Western Bulldogs, a little bit less owned, I think, those guys, but you maybe started with a Lobatorre, or maybe you have a Riley Sanders still hanging around your side. That's the only 2 I can really think of off the top of my head. Maybe a Tim English you started with. So you really got to look at it, and that's probably the heaviest line in my opinion. So This is why I'd probably start to avoid round 12 players, in fact trading them in, and that sort of contradicts why a lot of people are trading in Harry Sheezel this week. I do think he is a great trading target, as I'll get into shortly, but yeah, I cannot stress enough that it's really important to really start looking at your buy structure, and that can help determine what you're doing. I also think my last point in this is I really think it's important to really start planning out your buy trades. Now, it's probably a bit ridiculous to think that, we're still 4 weeks away from the first buys, but I think we can start planning out what we want to do. For example, what I'm looking to do in round 12, I'm hoping that, the likes of Finn O'Sullivan and the likes of Christian Moraes, the two rookies that I look to trade out, and then I probably upgrade the likes of maybe a Caleb Daniel goes up to a premium player. So that's getting off two dead rookies that are this sort of annoying price where I can't get them to anyone using 2 trades, but using 3 trades, that opens up a whole nother possibility that I can still get him up to the best player I possibly can, really downgrading them to the lowest players possible. And it's also bringing more green dots onto my field because, again, green dots is really important through the buys. As our premiums are off the field, we need someone to come on, right? And at the moment, we are kind of struggling with the rookies. I know for my team at the moment, I've got 4 red dots. I think a lot more people have more than that at the moment. So it is a bit it is a bit of a disaster when it comes to rookies at the moment. So we really got to start looking for these guys that have good job security, that are going to be able to carry us through the buys and be able to have good job security that can cover us through those periods of time. So picking up rookies is pretty important at this stage. But that is enough about buy structure. Let's get into the most traded out targets this week, the main purpose of this video. So I'll bring up my most trade out targets recommendation, and number 1, I do have Riley Sanders. He's gone back-to-back 50s and really going to start dropping some cash now. I think just the likes of, Marcus Bontempelli and now Liberatore has also come back into the side. Just means he's been pushed aside a fair bit and not getting as much as the ball. Still getting a fair few disposals, but he is very handball happy, as we have seen throughout his whole career so far. And just the fact that he's not getting any marks or any real tackles, he's not in a good role, so I think his time is up. He's had 2 tough matchups, in the last 2, which is probably factored in why he scored poorly. But I'm not expecting anything amazing from him in the next couple of weeks, and he's really going to start dropping in cash. Dropped the 15k last week, and he is at a nice price that you could easily get him up to the best of his line, whether that's a Chad Warner or Christian Petrarca, or you could even go into the midfield, or even if you can have the flexibility, you could even go to a Sheezel up that high. So I think it's just time to jump off him. He's been an okay ride. He's made you some decent coin, but now he's really going to start going backwards and undo a lot of that good work he's done for you. So I think he's the number 1 trade out target. Number 2, I have thrown in Tom de Koning, and this comes with a bit of a catch because I'm caught in 2 minds with this, in my opinion, because I will say if you already have a Tristan Xerri, I don't think you're trading Tom de Koning to a Gorn. I think Gorn is far too expensive now to be paying up for. Even though he may be in reach, he is now priced way above what you're expecting him to do. And it's sort of point chasing, in my opinion. He's gone big the last couple of weeks, so I'm not expecting that to continue. He's got a bit of a tougher matchup coming, so I think the point upgrade from a Tom de Koning to a Gorn isn't going to be as significant as it was in the last couple of weeks, particularly. So, and I also just like TDK's run. He's got 2 pretty good matchups in the next 3 weeks. Marshall's been pretty easy at the moment with his underlying injury or whatever he's going through, if you want to call it that. So he's pretty good points scored against. Grundy has been pretty easy so far this season as well, so I'm expecting a pretty good run there. And then Briggs, he's also under an injury cloud, so he is in doubt. So it could even be a big masterstroke if he does not get up for that game. It is 3 weeks away, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does. But the next 3 weeks, in summary, are pretty decent. So I'm expecting just some decent scores from him. You look back at what he's been able to do over the last, say, 5 weeks. So obviously, last weekend was a super hard matchup. I think Riley Burns, the second or third hardest Ruck matchup for the season. He always has been. He's a workhorse and doesn't allow those spread and marks around the ground. So that was always expected in my opinion. Obviously had the good matchup against the Cats, so that was expected again to be a very good score. But before that, Tristan Xerri, very hard to score against. So again, very expected. This was probably the only outlier I would say that I thought I captained him, so I thought he was going to go massive, really good matchup. But I will say that that game was super hot. It was in Adelaide for gather round. It was, I think it was like 32 degrees or something. It was just super hot, and for someone that has, just taken over the ruck role, playing his 5th game as a solo ruck, he's going to start to tire. So I'm not surprised he dropped a bit of a bad score there. So I'll give him off that one. The Darcy Cameron one, Darcy Cameron is just, he can be a difficult matchup here and there. Did allow 31 hit-outs, but the 4 free kicks against does not help as well. That would have been a 90 otherwise, so I would have expected a decent 90 there. So what I'm pretty much trying to get at here is that I'm not expecting 60s in the next couple of weeks. I'm expecting, mid-90s, if not can push 100s in the next couple of weeks. So I don't think you're going to get the point upgrade from a Tom de Koning going to a Gorn. But the other side of the coin, while I factored him in this second, in this number 2 spot, is that I don't think Tristan Xerri is going to be any cheaper than he is right now. Yeah, and I'll try and show you why. So he's obviously super cheap. He's been cheaper, but he's just skyrocketed a little bit in the last 2 weeks. Last 3 weeks, going pretty big. So looking at his run for the remainder of the season, it is unreal. So I just don't see a world where he's going to be dropping in price. This is slow for the remainder of the season. Look at it from round 10 onwards. He only has 2 hard matchups for the remainder of the season, being Max Gorn in round 18 and then Riley O'Brien in round 24. I wouldn't be surprised to see if, Sydney becomes a bit of a hard matchup as the season progresses, but that run is ridiculous. So I just don't see a world where he's going to drop this cheap again. So while he's only 100k cheaper than TDK now, he probably will be 250k more expensive very shortly, especially when we get to the buys and, you want to jump off a TDK and get up to these top lines, you're going to be paying far more. So that's just where I think if you've got a TDK, you don't have a Xerri, you can easily make that jump now for 100k and do a dump, either a downgrade on the other side or potentially even get an upgrade to a mid-price on that side of things. So that's why he is there at number 2. I'll move on from that. Number 3, I have got maxed out rookies. We all know it's meant to be upgrade season. 1 up, 1 down is the general formula for this time of the year. And I think we all have plenty of rookies that are maxing out at the moment, Sam Davidson is the number 1 traded out so far, and I think is the epitome of a maxed out price rookie. He's got so much money on his head. He's got a high break even now. He got subbed out on the weekend, so it's starting to become even more concerning. So yeah, he is just one that absolutely needs to go. Same with the likes of a Moraes. He's not playing at the moment. A Lawler. Will say that I'd probably prefer the likes of trading out a Lawler, a Murphy Breed, a Sam Davidson over the likes of these lower costly players like a Moraes, just because these guys are going to start going backwards very shortly. With a high break even, they're going to start undoing a lot of that good work that they've done so far this season by generating cash. Murphy Reed went back 12k last week. There's a potential he even drops even further than that this week. So I think they're more priorities to jump off rather than these red dot rookies that are not moving at the moment. And I don't think they're coming back in at any time at any stage at the moment, and you can also use them as a looping option. So that's just my opinion. You feel free to do what you want, but I do think that it's better to jump off these guys that are starting to go backwards instead. Lindsay, I don't think is classified in this maxed out rookie price. I do think he just had a poor game against a tough opponent. I say tough opponent, but 4 defenders particularly. We saw none of those Melbourne defenders go particularly well, so I expect a bounce back game from him this week against the Hawks in a good matchup for wingers and halfbackers. So yeah, I'm expecting him to bounce back and can continue generating some cash. We know he can put up a very decent score as he has shown so far this season. So I don't think he's done yet, but again, if he's the one that gets you up to the player that you're looking for, you can jump off of him. That's always a rule of thumb. Number 4, I had failed mid prices there. So this can be a range of players. Caleb Daniels next. For me, I've got Jake Saligo, so here's one that has to go for me. Caleb's wrong. He's just not getting it done at the moment. Who else am I thinking? Lawson Humphreys, if you jumped on him a couple of weeks ago. Besides that, there isn't a huge amount of failed mid prices, but I do think they just fall down the pecking order because it is sort of that week at the moment that we can jump off these players and still get a massive upgrade on that side because they have a good amount of money in their head, right? Besides that, I had Caleb Daniel at number 5 just because I think we have enough evidence now to say that he's not going to be part of the top 6 forwards, right? But I don't think he's an absolute must trade out at this stage, even though he is starting to drop a little bit in coin, just because he's not dropping that many points off of the top 6 forwards. You know, you think of the top 6 forwards, yeah, you got Bailey Dale, Jack McRae, you know, Christian Petrarca, all those likes. You expect them to average in the 90s to 100 range, whereas Caleb Daniel, he's been averaging, 75 in the last 2 with Harry Sheezel back there. He maybe can push 80s with some decent matchups, particularly with the Richmond game in the next 2, will be alright as well. So I'm not expecting him to be an absolute must trade out now, but I do encourage you to look at trading him out at the buy because he's going to start losing some money pretty significantly if he does start dropping some lower scores. So while he's not absolutely a must trade out now, if he's the one in your side that is needing to be gone, then he can go, right? So that's just my opinion there. He can easily get him up to any player you're looking for. So just quickly going down the list again, that's my top 5. I'll quickly just go down the list and give my opinions on some of these extra ones. So Riley Bice is a tough one because he has so much money in his head. It's ridiculous, but I really like his run. You know, this next 5 weeks is sort of ridiculous for these halfbackers for Sydney. Just Sydney in general. Everyone in Sydney just have a really good run. So I'm in the camp of holding him because I have a lot more faith that I have more preference of fielding him over the likes of a Luke Trainer or even a Zach Reed. I just have more comfortable feelings about him, that he's got this good role. He can continue to generate some cash if he can pop a decent score. This has been the lowest score he has done. Besides that, he's been a very solid 80 averaging player. He can pop a very decent score. So I'm hoping he can get back to those sort of ways in the next 5 weeks and then trade him at his buy potentially. So, but again, rule of thumb, if he's the only player that gets you up to that player that you're looking for, then I don't mind it. I know a lot of people are targeting Harry Sheezel. He's very expensive. So again, if you're jumping off 2 rookies, Bice may be your only option to get there, then I don't mind. But yeah, I wouldn't be thriving to get him out as a number 1 priority. That's all I'm saying. Stone can go. I think his time is done, but again, look at your looping options. He does have the nice forward defender status, so you can really use him on either line there. Pariah can go, Kaku can go, Sunderland can go. All these guys can sort of go. I don't know what Liberatore has been doing. Liberatore can now go with the likes of, Bontempelli and whatnot back. His just time is up. Been a good run. He was a very good pick to start the season and did very well. But yeah, now it's time to move on. He made some cash for you, which is positive. But yeah, dropped that 47k on the weekend. Is a bit stinky. But besides that, I think that's probably about it. Caleb Saligo obviously needs to go. I'm doing the same. Caleb Sarong just is not finding his way. He's even becoming a bit of a watch now to see when we can pick him up because he is so cheap. He's dropped 150k so far this year, but he's just not getting it done. Constantly getting tagged, and just the Freo game style isn't that inducive to scoring at the moment with a lot of handballs, not many marks. Just purely relying on handballs and tackles generally doesn't result in very good fantasy scores. So I'm not super bullish that he's going to return back to form, but he's obviously someone that we're going to watch that has done it previously. I wouldn't be trading out the likes of Max Holmes either. I know he's been bad, but I just have this feeling that he's okay. And that whole defensive 6 is very difficult to sort of name at the moment. I've tried my best to sort of roll out my best top 6, and it literally just goes Whitfield, Sheezel, Wanganeen, Malira, Zorko, and then you've got this next two are very difficult. I've still got Jack Sinclair in there at number 5. And then I've got Lockie Ash slotting in there at number 6. And then that really throws a blanket over the likes of Josh Dacos, Noble, and then obviously Max Holmes as well there. So if you absolutely hate watching him and you can't watch him anymore, do it. But it just feels wrong to me because you're trading out a potential premium, right? So I don't think I could make the same decision. I just spoke about Jack Sinclair. I don't think he's one I'd be trading out just after that one bad score. I know he has been a bit lackluster recently. I do think a lot of that just came down to the fact that Freo only kicked 3 behind, sorry. So he only had the 2 kick-ins, I think. So he's got a pretty good matchup for the next 4 weeks. So I'd be just holding through those 4 weeks, see how it goes. If he ends up being someone that you don't like, trade him out around 13, get him up to someone else. So that's what I'd be doing in that opinion. But now we'll move on to the trade-in targets because that's what we're all here for. Am I right? So we will start in the... Where do we want to start? Let's start with the forward line because I think that's pretty straightforward this week. So number 1, I have gone with Chad Warner because he is so cheap compared to the rest of the guys. So, and I really like the run. So if you're looking at the run for midfielders for Sydney, it is by far the easiest for the next couple of weeks. So 5 weeks, he's got 4 easy matchups. Port Adelaide, the only tougher one in there. Now, he doesn't have to be a keeper for the year. I'm not saying you trade him in, you keep him for the year. You can luxury trade him when we get towards the end of the buys and do that what you will. Or if he doesn't tick the boxes, he's not doing what you want to do, trade him out around 14 when he starts to become a bit of a tougher matchup after that. So I just think with the price range he's at, he's back in that midfield now. Good run. It's all ticking the right boxes that he can be the one that gets you through from now until the buy. And can put up some very decent scores. And it's very close to being top 6 of that line. Now that we've got the likes of Cal Daniel dropping out there as well, that makes it even a bit clearer that he's there or thereabouts. So I don't mind him there. And he's very achievable from his price range from 2 rookies. So he is there at number 1. He's been doing decently over the last couple of weeks. Tough matchup against the likes of Giants. Saw him just put an 83 up. But obviously that we expect better. 119 against the Suns. That's just what he's capable of when he's on his game. Besides that, it's been very up and down with his role. So I'm expecting him to be consistent in that role now. The only slight flag I have is that Callum Mills is potentially back at some stage in the coming weeks. They're playing it week by week, so there's no guarantee of when that's happening. But we've obviously expected him to come back into that midfield this year. The coach has come out and said that pre-season, so whether that's changed from then to now, who knows? But I'm still expecting him to come back into that midfield. So who does that push out of the likes of Heaney, Rowbottom, and Warner? I could see either Heaney or Warner going back to that forward line as a bit more of a stay-at-home forward or rotating through the midfield. So it'll be interesting to see. That's the only flag I have. But again, not sure when he's coming back, so I won't be factoring that in too much. Number 2, I have Isaac Rankin. I think that's pretty straightforward. He is just absolutely killing it at the moment. He has pretty much hasn't been dropped below 93 if you're... Sorry. I'll say he hasn't dropped below 93 all year. Factoring in that he got subbed in round 2 for that off that 56% on 70. He was on track for a really good score there. And that Gold Coast game, that should have easily been an 80, if not higher. Obviously, 5 free kicks against is definitely not helpful. 15 points less, and then obviously that missed goal at the end, mark kick goal, would have been 12 points added. So you can think, you can hope, but yeah, at the end of the day, he did drop a 69 there. So here's one that I highly expect he's going to be best 6 at the time of the end of the year. He's just absolutely killing it at the moment. Number 3, I have got Matthew Kennedy in there, and that's probably a bit of a unique one just because he is absolutely killing it at the moment. He's gone 3 tons on the trot, and 2 of them have been against very tough opponents, so that's quite impressive in itself. The coach has come out and said that we're not looking to change up the midfield just because it's performing so well. They flogged Port Adelaide. I think they beat the Giants the week prior as well, so they're absolutely flying at the moment. So they're not looking to change things up, even though the likes of Bontempelli and and Trelaw are back into that side, returning from injury, he looks like he's going to be a stay-at-home midfielder for a little while yet. So again, look at your buy structure. He is around 12 buy player, so make that decision if you wish. He is a bit more expensive, so that's why I have ranking above him. So you are paying a bit of a premium there, but for what he's doing, he's very unique, and he's got a very decent run as well for midfielder. So looking at that, Gold Coast, Essendon, and Geelong into his buy, and then even after that, St Kilda and Richmond in the next 6. One tough matchup in the next 6-7 weeks. You take that every day of the week. So that's why he's in there. Number 4, I have gone with Christian Petrarca. I know he's number 1 in here. I just think he's a bit too expensive now. You've missed his his 3 pop scores or 4 pop scores, whatever you want to look at it. You've missed the good matchups, and it's a bit point chasing in my opinion. So I'm not really looking at shopping there myself. He's already priced well over that 95 price range now. So yeah, I think you're paying for what you're going to get for the remainder of the year. And he probably drops a few lower scores coming in the next couple of weeks with some tougher matchups. You know, Hawks very tough, Sydney getting a lot tougher, and then these two are the 2 toughest midfielder opponents there is. So 4 super tough matchups in the next 6 weeks is not something that I want to be trading into. So that's why he's down there at number 4. And then I have thrown in Mateus Philippou at 5, because I still think if you're in a position where you're not confident, you're in a poor position, say you're 20k ranked, you're probably no chance of a hat, your team's looking in a bit of shambles, so you're trying to find a way back, then I would say take the punt on a Philippou, trade him in this week, see how he goes. So yeah, that's where I'm at. If you want to take a bit of a risk when you're a bit higher up, I probably wouldn't recommend it. I'd personally wait a week and see where he's playing. I think we already have confirmation that he's going to be playing an inside midfielder. I think the coach has come out and said that in the last week particularly. So yeah, I'm fairly confident where he plays. It's just whether he gets managed a fair bit, being quite young. He's only 20, coming off a pretty significant injury. I'm expecting some lower tog, probably not going to score significantly well. Already priced quite highly for what we expect of him. 71 break even isn't the greatest. If he was, say, 500k, I would absolutely be jumping into that. But at 650, it is a bit of a stretch to be jumping straight on him. So he's there at number 5 there for me. Just scrolling down the list, a few other options to look at. I would not be trading in Ryan Marrick anymore. Far too expensive. Probably only has 2 or 3 weeks left in him before you're looking at trading him out. In my opinion, you could potentially ride him out through the buys if he continues to hold his form. But I do think he'll run out of cash generation pretty shortly. So my voice is just going a bit dry. So yeah, not going there, even though I'm an owner. Looking at some other options, gets very unique very, very quickly. So I don't think a huge amount of people are shopping in this area at the moment. So now we'll move in to the ruck line. I think it's pretty straightforward in my opinion. Again, Xerri is your number 1. If you don't have him, I think he's the one you jump on now. Like I said, I do not like Gawn as a trade-in because he is far too expensive now. It's chasing points. He will come down in time, you know. Looking at his run for Ruckman particularly, he now goes Hawthorn, neutral matchup, Brisbane Lions, hard matchup, Sydney, on that borderline of a neutral and a tough matchup. So he doesn't even have a good run for the next sort of, up until after round 18. So I don't see why you'd be trading into it anymore. If you're an owner, you're just riding it out. He's number 1 ruckman in the competition right now. So I don't see that changing, and I do just expect decent scores, but not anything amazing coming up. So I would not be trading and paying that much for him. Just look at what happens with Zorko. People traded in Zorko. He's gone to shit. He's dropped massively in coin. Merritt, to some extent, has done very similar. He dropped some stinky scores and is on the way down at the moment. Whitfield's probably the only exception to the rule where he has actually remained up that price. So you got to be careful when you're paying over $1.1 million for a certain player. I just don't see that being a factor. You shouldn't do it. The only other player I've slotted in there at number 2 is the likes of Rowan Marshall, and I haven't spoken about him much so far, but I just like his run. The next 2 are pretty good, and he's super cheap is the ridiculous thing, you know. He is 910k, so that's priced around 90 at the moment, which is just unreal to think that he has been a 118 averaging player over the last 2 years. So if he's even a chance of getting back to those sort of numbers, he has to go massive in the next, you know, second half of the year. So I do expect him to increase his average a lot more. He's slowly starting to get his form back in terms of hit out wise, but it's just the marks which is the concerning factor. They're not kicking it to him nearly as much. We've seen it for 1 week, which was obviously a very good matchup, but he's just not getting it done. So I really want to see those marks improve before I jump on. If I was in a scenario that I had TDK and I already have a Xerri, then I probably wouldn't even be trading a TDK to a Marshall, just because I think you're not going to get the points upgrade there. Marshall hasn't shown enough yet to be a worthy trade out. You're probably going to get very similar points this week, if not in the coming weeks as well. I'd be waiting a couple of weeks to see if Marshall can continue his form. Decent matchup next week is something that you can jump on if he goes well, particularly against Tom de Koning this week. Then you can jump and make that trade then. But I wouldn't be doing it this week, in my opinion, just because, I don't think you're going to get the points upgrade that you're looking for. So that is the Ruckman done. I guess the other Ruckman I probably should mention is Tim English. Again, probably too expensive at this point to jump on, even though he has been doing extremely well so far this season. Looking like the Tim English of old, honestly. So that is a very good sign for all those that started him, but I wouldn't be trading him in at this stage. Again, round 12 buy, very heavy. I wouldn't be looking at that one. So, yeah. And you don't want to have two Ruckman on the same buy. That would be disasters that you're only fielding 20 players. That means you would have a very poor week then. So I wouldn't recommend it. We will move on from them. We'll now move on to the defenders. Now, Harry Sheezel is obviously the number one target of the week, in my opinion. Overall, doesn't matter what line, I think is the one that you're going to absolutely must trade in if you are capable of it, because he presents the most amount of value at the price range he is at, whereas there's not a huge amount of value at the moment there. So, obviously, playing this halfback role, he is absolutely dominating. We saw that last week against Essendon, 134, 9 marks, 32 touches. We know what he's going to do off that halfback. The run isn't terrible, I don't think, from memory. Let's have a quick look. So North go Brisbane Lions this week. Richmond next week is obviously a very nice one. Collingwood the week after, bye, and then into some neutral matchups. So I don't think you're really looking at the structure, the fixture too much for trading him in. I think he's just one of those guys that right now in the role that he's playing, he is probably 5 to 10 points under what we're expecting the price to in, say, a couple of weeks' time. So I think he's one of the must-have guys that you should be trading in this week if you are capable, and should be a priority for you to trade into. So he is there, number one. Number two, I've still got Nasai Wanganeen-Malera. I still think he's quite cheap for what he is capable of doing. Not playing as much midfield time last week particularly. He played just purely halfback, but the run is still very, very nice for these designated kick-out players. So Carlton this week is a bit poorer, but then West Coast, Gold Coast Suns and Melbourne into the round 13 buy is also a really nice buy to be trading into, just for the two on there. So that's another huge factor why he's there. I don't think I need to elaborate too much more on him. He's just been a very solid player, He hasn't dropped below. He's only had that 2 scores below 100 so far this year, and that was against two quite a tough opponents in Port Adelaide and Western Bulldogs. Besides that, everything's been, above 100, if not hitting 110. So, yeah, very confident with him there at number 2. Now, I have thrown Lachie Whitfield at number 3. And the fact that I put him there is because it's something that I've looked at myself. I'm sure everyone in the fantasy community is feeling the exact same as me, is that these defenders suck. We've got probably 4 guys that we're confident in that are going to be top of their line, but the rest just sort of suck at the moment. So to avoid having to play this game of jump on a Noble type or a Josh Dunkley type and see how they go and take some bad scores or take some decent scores at the same time, I could also just jump on a Lachie Whitfield if you have the price, if you have the money in the bank to do it, and just ride that out. Knowing that he has been super consistent so far this season, he's averaging 115. He's priced about 115, if not a little bit higher than that. So you're paying for what you're going to get. There's every chance he does come down a little bit in price, but also looking at his run, it's pretty solid. So Geelong this week, I don't foresee any attention coming his way, but there's always a chance. Geelong always come with a bit of a plan to do something. Just look at what happened with Dacos last week. Hasn't tagged anyone all the season, but then instantly tagged Josh Dacos and Nick Dacos, and that's what happened. Fremantle, pretty good matchup. Richmond, Gold Coast into the round of 16 bye, which is something I probably should mention is quite important this week, particularly because I don't think we're super heavy in round 16 premiums. When I'm looking at those guys that we'll be targeting in that round, got the likes of Josh Dunkley, Zorko, Holmes, the Merritt type, the Whitfield and Green, and obviously Smith. So I personally only have one of those round 16 players, and that is Smith. So I'm really looking in the market for a round 16 player, whether that's a defender or a midfield, a defender or a midfielder. I'm happy to take either one. I think I'm leaning to a midfielder at this stage, just again trying to focus on a bit more value, but it's a real tough call at this stage in time. So yeah, I don't mind Whitfield if you have the money to do it. The only thing, again, I'll caveat that with is look at what your plans are to do next week, so you have enough cash to again make those trades, allowing for some price changes here and there. I know a lot of people will be looking to target Philippou next week as long as he performs well. So again, that's a very cheap play. You should be able to get him quite easily from 2 rookies. So maybe you don't need a huge amount of cash in the bank next week. You may only need 50k at most to be able to make that trade available, and you may even have some left over trading out some decent rookies. So it may not be the ultimate week that you need to have a huge amount of cash in the bank with some decent players coming back, like a Kitty Coleman, a Philippou, and maybe a Callum Mills coming shortly. So yeah, that's why he's there at number 3. Dane Zorko falls in at number 4. Just because, again, he just falls in that category that we know he can do it, and he's shown glimpses of returning to some form in the last 2 weeks. Just alone on the weekend, we saw a 2-minute patch where he just went with 30 points. I think it was 5 marks, 5 kicks. It was something filthy, and I was throwing hands when I saw that. As a non-owner at the moment, I was quite happy with his 70+ score there. So, but yeah, showing some glimpses of what he can do in a halfback role. Very good price at the moment, being around that $1 million price tag. For when people paid over $1.15 million for him maybe 4 weeks ago or something like that. The only thing that concerns me is that he has had a pretty good run so far this season, where he's gone West Coast Eagles, Geelong, Richmond, St Kilda, Gold Coast Suns. He's got a couple more coming up in Melbourne North and Melbourne. Obviously, very 2 good matchups as well. So he's already had a lot of good matchups so far this season. And if you look at it, Hawthorn, GWS, Port Adelaide, Carlton, he doesn't have that many good matchups coming until the remainder of the season, realistically. If you're looking past, even from now on, he's got 1, 2, 3, I'll count it 4 green matchups for the remainder of the year, but then has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tough matchups. So is he a type of guy that you want to be trading into for the remainder of the year? I'm not too sure, especially with the concerns, Fletcher taking that role a little bit off there probably reduces his ceiling a little bit and his floor at the same time. Kitty Coleman, what's he doing? Is he coming straight back into the side now that he's played his VFL game? I think the coach has said that he's going to have to fight for his position. He's not an absolute lock in that there, so there's no guarantee that he comes back. But again, we expect him to play in that defensive 50. So who does that squeeze out? Does that throw a Zorko forward like we've seen in the past? And that's just the concerns I have around Zorko, that they can easily flip him anyway because he does have that utility to him and he can be very utilized in any position. So for those reasons, he is down there at number 4, even with the cheaper price tag. Terrible run. Unsure of his security in his role as well. So they're number 4. And then I have gone with the likes of Josh Dacos at number 5. Where is he? There he is. Now, I think he's starting to get to that point now that he is priced around 95, so you've maybe only got 5 points. 5 points of upgrade there for him. Pretty terrible run, though, in my opinion, you know. So, he's got... Sorry, not a terrible run. What was I going to say there? It's just the unknown a little bit. Again, the bottom end of the top 6 is very unknown to me. Like I said, I still think Jack Sinclair falls in there, and maybe a Lockie Ash is in there at the moment. But Josh Dacos is just on the end of that line, where he can put up some decent scores, but he can also drop some very bad scores at the same time. So that 65, I do believe, was tagged. Can't confirm that for sure, but yeah, definitely seems like that. Besides that, he's got a pretty high floor of like an 80 at the moment. So he's not the worst option, but he's not the best option in my opinion, and I don't feel comfortable about it. I don't know what it is, but yeah. So he slots in that number 5 just because I think he's one that you can trade into at a cheaper price, and he's going to be there or thereabouts for a top 6 defender. So yeah, he slots in there number 5. Now, a couple other names, obviously, I wanted to talk about in this line was the, obviously, Kitty Coleman. I already touched on him a little bit. Obviously, he played in the VFL last weekend, and he had something ridiculous of like a 131 fantasy points. It was something ridiculous, like 37 touches, 12 marks, or something crazy like that. So he is in some good form, and there's every chance that he comes back into the side this week. But as I said, he has to fight for his position. And obviously, the likes of Brisbane Lions are flying at the moment. They're winning a lot of games. They're obviously number 1 in the competition right now with, what was that, 7 wins? 8 wins? I actually don't know. 7 wins, I think. So, yeah, they're doing extremely well. So, there's no guarantee that he's in the side. But with his price tag at 521k, he is that type of guy that you can instantly jump on if he is included in the side. If you can't get up to anyone else, or you're just jumping off to, red dot rookies that don't have a huge amount of money on his head, he is not one you could easily jump on at that price range, and you can pretty much be comfortable that he's, in some way, shape, or form, he's going to increase on his average. We have seen him in the past be a 70 averaging player in the halfback role, if not even pushing 80s, but we have seen him even push higher than that. I remember specifically the Collingwood Brisbane grand final, he went absolutely massive. He was like 100 points at halftime, playing as that key distributor off halfback. So I have high hopes for Kitty Coleman to return to that form. The only factor is he going to be managed? Is he going to redo his injury, as he is quite injury prone? So he is definitely someone that, again, you can easily jump on this week if you are in a bit of a position that you want to take a bit more risk on. Then I wouldn't mind doing that. But for the rest of the competition, I would be pretty comfortable just waiting 1 week and then jumping on next week. So again, make your plans, and yeah, make your plans to trade him in next week. If all else fails. The other guy, I guess I'll touch on Callum Mills. As I said, he's still a 1 week play at this stage. The injury report just says to be confirmed. Now, he is definitely someone that I'll be waiting a week on, just because he is quite a expensive price. Again, there'll be some management there. Who knows what his role is going to be, so wait on that one. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him play this week if all fails. So just keep those guys in mind. But now we'll go into the midfield and do the final line, and I'll finish off today's video. So the midfielder line is probably the toughest line of the lot this week, in my opinion. I struggled a lot to try and put the right arrangement of who I think is best targets, because in all honesty, there isn't a huge amount of value there, and when there is value, they're not absolutely smash picks that I can be comfortable with. So I have gone with Josh Dunkley at number 1, and I will say, like I said, he's not someone I'm trading in right now, but I have flipped and flopped a shit ton so far this week. So he's just someone that I think is going to be super consistent, right? Even though the run isn't great, and I showed you that a little bit before with Zorko, you're looking at the remaining of the run for the remainder of the season isn't great. Very decent matchups, but a lot of bad matchups for the remainder of the season. So it isn't great. He's had some very good matchups to start this season. But looking at his how consistent he has been, he's only dropped below 100 twice. Again, against very two tough opponents. He never cops attention. So he's never going to have this real bottom floor score where he drops a 70. I think those days are behind him where he should be a very consistent 80 plus player for the remainder of the season. Yeah, again, against neutral matchups, it'll just be a consistent, 100, 105. But good matchups, he can easily put up 130, if not more, because he does have those attributes of being a pretty big tackler, but you can see his tackling numbers. But he also gets a fair few marks as well. So he just needs to get his hands on the ball a little bit more. Would be nice. So he is there at number 1 for me, even though he's at a more elevated price tag. I just think if you've got the available funds, he's someone that you can just jump on and not have to worry about him too much each and every week. So he slots then at number 1. Number 2, I have gone with Zach Merritt. And again, very same vein, he's super expensive. Just over that 1.1 mil threshold. Higher break even. Again, has been super consistent. Had a couple lower games with an 81 and a 96. Again, just against the West Coast one, he just really didn't perform. Didn't really need to. The team was covered them pretty well. So yeah, he didn't really have to do a huge amount. And I'm not sure what happened in that Hawks game. But yeah, super consistent. Very good captain option. Knows how to find a ceiling. The role's a little bit different to what we have seen in the past, where he's not always in the midfield. He's floating around the field a fair bit, getting a lot more marks than what we've seen, but not getting the tackles as much. So it's a bit of a give and take there. I would like to see a bit of both. But with the likes of Setterfield in there, Schultz in that midfield, Caldwell's taking a lot of those as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some tackles drop off a little bit more, just for those guys doing them a little of that work. But at the end of the day, they want the ball in his hands whenever they can. He's a lethal kick. He sets up a lot of goals, and he even kicks a fair few goals himself, especially start of the season. So he slots in there at number 2. Again, can just lock him away for the remainder of the season. The run isn't the best, especially for the next 2 weeks, but post that is when I'm really looking at jumping on. So if you don't have him locked in for your round 11 trade, I'd absolutely be penciling that in now, because that's what I'm doing. But I wouldn't discourage you from going early this week. And it is definitely one of the factors to why I've been flipping back and forth between going him at Dunkley or him just with a bit of a run, even though it is 30k more expensive. So I'm still not quite sure where I'm going just yet. Both have the same buy, so either way, you're winning in that sense. So there is that. Number 3, I have gone with the likes of Tom Green. He is a little bit less owned, 4% at the moment. Now, he is in here because he has a lot of value, $1.02 million, priced at about 103 at the moment. This is a guy that we know can go 110 in the past. Now, the only thing that I will say is that he hasn't shown a huge amount so far this season. He's just been quietly going about his business, about his hundreds every single week, dropped a couple lower ones, but also put up some decent ones every now and then. But I do think there's signs that he could get back to his best. He has been chopping and changing with some of his CBAs. He didn't start with the best CBAs, but has slowly gained them a lot higher than what they have been in the past. Whether that's just with a few other magnets moving, he's just always going to be the constant one in there. I do think he's probably not the main tag target anymore, especially with Callahan in there. I think he's probably a bit more impactful. So that does take the pressure off him a little bit. Obviously, hugely it relies on a lot of disposals, not getting a huge amount of marks, and really not getting the tackles anymore. He used to be a massive tackler. We missed the days where he was getting 8 to 10 tackles every single week, being that big body in there. But they pretty much just want him getting the ball and getting it out, not getting as many tackles in there anymore. So that is a bit of a shame. I think the likes of Bedford's doing that defensive work now. So yeah, that really frees up Green to do a lot of the distribution work. So just playing his role there, which does hurt his fantasy scoring a little bit. So Tom Green is a good option, just in the fact that you're paying for what you're going to get. He maybe has a couple points of value, but probably doesn't have the 110s in him anymore, especially with Callahan in there, probably taking some points off of him in that role. I also did a bit more deeper dive on him just with the fact that he's only played one game so far this season at his home ground, which we have seen him score quite well at in the past. So all last year, he was averaging well into the 110s at his home ground. He's only played one game there this year, as I said, and that was against West Coast, which was what the 121 was. So obviously, very good matchup against West Coast. Kicked 2 goals in that, so that's why we saw a bit of a ceiling score. But he plays a lot of games in the back half of the year at his home, and he also has a fairly decent run. So I can show you that here. Geelong, Freo, Carlton, Richmond, the next 4, very good. Port Adelaide's the only tough one probably the next, say that 10 weeks. Only tough matchup for the next 10 weeks is sort of ridiculous. So he's also spent a huge amount of time on my side, just locking him away, hoping for some ceiling scores. But I even went a little bit further than that and see why has he dropped off a little bit from his days last year where he's doing quite well. I do think it's a bit of Callaghan, in my opinion. We saw bits and pieces of Callaghan come into the side last year. Particularly, I've got 5 games written down here where he had, high amount of CBAs, 70 plus sort of ranges. And he was only averaging about that 85 while Finn Callaghan was in the midfield at a decent rate. So that just shows you enough that Finn Callaghan has taken points off him when he's in the midfield. So I do think that has reduced Tom Green's ceiling a fair bit and also brought his floor down potentially a little bit as well. But maybe you can argue it's also increased it with not getting as much attention in there. So for those sort of reasons, he is at number 3, just because I don't think he's quite at the top of the range of being a top 8 midfielder when it comes to the end of the year. When I'm looking at the top 8 midfielders, we've always got the likes of Dacos, Merritt, Jordan Dunkley, and Jordan Dawson and Josh Dunkley probably easily being the top 4 in my opinion. Then you've got the likes of Andy Brayshaw, George Hewitt, Zach Butters since his return 5 weeks ago has been amazing. Then you can even throw a Connor Rosie. He's been probably the 8th one in there at the moment, averaging quite a good tick. Gotta remind yourself that Connor Rosie more than likely will be picking up defender status prior to round 12, I believe it is. So make your allowances for that. That will shake up the best 6 defenders as well. But then you've got the guys that just outside of that. Bontempelli on his return has been amazing 3 weeks. Tom Green just in there. Sam Walsh, if he ever returns into form, he could definitely be in there. Adam Treloar, is he going to become that number 1 midfielder again like he was last year? Who knows? At the moment, he's not playing in there. Then you've got the likes of returning of Errol Goulden at some stage in this season. So there's so many different factors, but I do believe Tom Green for the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks could be in that top 8 midfielders for that period of time. So for those sort of reasons, he is in there. So I do recommend people trading him in. Again, is a bit unique, so if it does go backwards, it could hurt a little bit. He was one I was pretty hot on to start the season as well. Marcus Bontempelli does fall in there at number 4. Like I said, he has been pretty elite since his return. Did have that 1 sub game last week with the lower time on ground, as well as the round 6 one. So he's just come back and said, no worries, I'm just to play wherever, kicking goals, doing what he does. So he looks in some ripper form. I was a little bit concerned with his role, whether he was going to spend a bit more time forward, and I do potentially see that in his future, but at the moment like I said, the coach is really happy with the midfield mix, so they're looking to keep him in there at the moment. So very good one you could trade into. More expensive, but again, a bit more unique. But yeah, look at your buy structure. The 5th option I've got down there is the likes of Jack Steele, and I think he's just the epitome of a player that you can run through till his buy. He's showing glimpses of returning back to form after having a bit of an injury concern over the first, from round 3 onwards to round 6, where he's had that lower time on ground, missed 2 games there. So he's really starting to return to form, starting to hit his tackles. Would like to see him hit a few more marks, but that's just what he does. He's not really one to spread and get those marks. He just gets in, gets the disposals, and gets the tackles, being that ferocious player. So I think he can be there or thereabouts for the next 4 weeks with his decent run. Carlton, West Coast, Melbourne, and Gold Coast with the round 13 bye as well. So again, really, really valuable for the the round 13 bye. So yeah, I really like him as an option there. If you're not super keen on him, a couple other options I have looked at is a Tim Taranto. Is a bit more expensive than him, but has been showing some decent form over the last sort of month. 109, 120, 102 in his last 5. Just some reason he just doesn't seem to be consistent, especially some reason against Melbourne last week. Only 1 tackle, very unusual for him. He's usually a 5+ tackler, so not really sure what went on there. But very good for next matchup, so could be someone that you jump on now, ride for the next 3 to 5 weeks, trade him at his bye. Definitely don't mind that, but didn't make my top 5. Henry Hustwaite is someone that I probably should mention, as a lot of people are looking at him this week. Now, as an owner, I jumped on him last week. I do not recommend people jump on him this week. It's only a 2-week play, because more than likely not Connor Nash and Cam Mackenzie are going to come back into the side for that Brisbane game. You got to think the Hawks are contending for, if not a premiership, for finals. So they're going to be bringing their best team when it comes to playing the best team in the comp right now against Brisbane Lions. So they're going to drop him quite quickly, and it only takes 1 bad game. So that could even happen this week. If he drops a bad game this week, and he may not be even around for round 10. So I cannot recommend this less, just because it is such a bad play with only 2 weeks to go. I did it last week because I thought it was a bit of a unique situation where I get 3 weeks out of it. I can potentially get 150k, hopefully get some decent scores. It was risky. It has paid off so far, making that 40k. But I still think from here on until that Brisbane game, I don't expect him to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think he maybe makes another 70k at most, with maybe some poorer scores in the next 2. So I wouldn't be doing it this week. I'd only be doing it if you're confident that he's going to be sticking around for maybe 4 weeks' time, 3 at a minimum. But I just don't see a world where, Connor Nash isn't coming straight back to the side, and Cam Mackenzie, when he's over his hand injury, which has been labelled 1 to 2 weeks, then yeah, they're obviously going to be fielding their best midfield. They'll have the best midfield back, and I don't see him playing any other position at the moment, because yeah, he's an inside mid. That's all he does at the VFL. He does very well at that, and he's only scoring from stoppage points pretty much. He's not really getting the transition as much. So yeah, that's purely relying on a lot of his stoppages, and even at that, he's not getting a huge tick of CBAs at this point in time. Anyway, I'll show you his CBA numbers here. He had 36% last week, and he snuck up a little bit with 50% there last week, just with the likes of Cam Mackenzie out even further. So he's playing that 4th midfielder role at the moment, but that will only last for another 1 to 2 weeks at most. So I do not recommend it at this stage at that price range. The only other option I wanted to sort of throw up, and it is very speculative, but just because I wanted to throw a different option up for people that are struggling with cash generation and they are maybe not able to get up to the most expensive guys that are 900k or even 850k. The likes of Matthew Johnson appeals to me a little bit, because obviously the likes of Hayden Young has dropped out of that side with an injury at the moment to his hamstring, so he is out for I think 8 to 12 weeks or something crazy like that. You've also got the likes of Jager O'Meara, who's out of that side, who we saw at the start of the season be a part of that midfield group. So he is probably crying out to be that 3rd midfielder for them, for at least the 4-week period, I would have thought, with the likes of, I can probably show you here. Looking at the injury report, you've got, where are they? Jager O'Meara, he's still 5 weeks away. And then obviously you've got the likes of, where is he? Hayden Young, 10 to 12 weeks away, so even worse than I thought. So those are 2 big components of the midfield that are potentially out at the moment. I will say that Nathan O'Driscoll has a potential to come back, but again, he's more of a bit of a winger at the moment. We saw that with his numbers early on in the season, where he had the first week where he had a lot of CBAs, but from then on, he didn't have at all. So whether that was, I can't argue why that was. I think just Jager O'Meara came in and took his numbers after that point. So I do think Matthew Johnson could be a viable option, because when he does have a good amount of CBAs, say 50% over, he is averaging 86 at the moment. So someone that is priced at, if I chuck his price in, he's 677k, isn't he? Priced at 668. That is 20 points or near 20 points of value that he could potentially be putting up. So if you're struggling, definitely one I could look at. I will say though, he does have some very tough matchups in the next 3 weeks, particularly obviously Collingwood, Collingwood, GWS, and Port Adelaide. Probably the 3 toughest matchups you can have in the competition for midfielders, so that does work against him a little bit. But again, round 13 bye could be someone that you jump off at that stage. So just wanted to throw in an option there for everyone that is struggling with coin in hand at the moment. So that is all I wanted to talk about with those guys. Now I just want to quickly summarize to finish off the video my top 5 players that I'll be trading in this week. So obviously that is Harry Sheezel. I think he's one you want to own. 10 to 15 points of value on him at the moment. If you're trading in a midfielder, he's your midfielder. Get him in. Number 2, Xerri. If you don't have him or you're moving off for TDK, he is one that you want to be grabbing. I don't know where he is on this list, but he's here somewhere. Maybe. I probably missed him. Yeah, easily number 2 for me, just with what he's priced at the moment. I don't think he's going to get any cheaper with his run. So even though it's not the best matchup to be trading into, I expect a solid 100, makes a bit of coin, maybe 30k, and then you'll continue with some decent scores coming through. Josh Dunkley falls in at number 3, just because I think it's a huge safety net at the moment. Has a bit of value on top of his head, priced at about 108, so I do think he can go 110. So he falls there at number 3. Number 4, I have Lockie Whitfield, just paying up, getting the top dogs there. Pretty self-explanatory. And then I had number 5 at Isaac Rankin, if you don't have him already. So there's my top 5. Hopefully that is decent enough advice. Now I'll just quickly show you what I'm doing to finish off the video. So it hasn't changed from my team review since the other day. I am going Jake Saligo to Josh Dunkley at this stage. Again, that could change to a Merritt or even Tom Green. Or even a Lockie Whitfield. I don't know. I'm still weighing it up. I want to see a few things play out, but I don't think I would be able to see anything further. And then jumping off a maxed out rookie in a Murphy Breed to downgrading to a Boxall. That's pretty self-explanatory. So that is my trades, but hopefully you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you have and you've got some advice out of this, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of me. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. I will do my best to answer as many questions as I can before the game start tomorrow night. If you want a personalized question, go to my QU link in the description. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.